So I want to let's talk a little bit about then the process that you went through, and perhaps I can think back to my own process. And I remember that there were intentional conversations that occurred while I was an ordinand in Manchester Diocese in particular about how we can find ways to make people, more diverse people, feel welcome into ministry. And it began with difficult conversations where that we invited, the bishop and I think the dean of the cathedral invited anyone who identifies as BAME, both clergy and lay, within Manchester Diocese for a series of conversations about the way the way they feel that the diocese works. And we kind of split into little groups, and it was a big moaning session, but it was great though. It was therapeutic because it automatically forged a sense of community among BAME people, where often when you're in one church in the parish, you've got no idea what's happening elsewhere, and you can often feel alone. So when people came together, you realize, oh, it's not just me. There are others within the diocese who have similar experiences and also share a similar hope for the future. It was encouraging that it was headed up by our bishop as well.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the sessions we had, it was at his house, and he put on a big spread for us in his house, and we had a lovely meal and a conversation, and there was a promise to not just leave it at that. And I think what that did is it filtered some of those conversations have filtered now through into how we encourage and support vocations. So Nick's meeting the BDO, as a result, he's taken a lot of that on board and gone, right, we need to work extra hard to try and make people feel welcome from diverse backgrounds. And that's partly why I'm doing what I'm doing, partly why I've been asked to support in that way, because the diocese have realised that as a church we've not done enough to encourage vocations amongst people who don't look the same or sound the same or have the same educational background.
And that is true. And that's what I remember. My first DDO, I say DDO very briefly, it was the Archdeacon of Salford.
Yeah.
And but he left. He was David Sharples.
Yeah, David.
He was mine for about 4 months.
Right.
Before I even joined the diocese, really, we were discerning whether to come to Seams, and he looked after me, and then he left, and Nick's meeting came.
Yeah.
And I loved what Nick put in his bio, that what he wanted for the diocese.
Mm-hmm.
And one was about being diverse. Secondly, it was about education.
Yeah.
It actually doesn't come off, we don't have to, we don't all have to come from the same background.
Yeah.
And thirdly, he wanted to make the effort that everyone who felt a calling to ministry was understood, was journeyed with, because we know at the end of the day, it goes national and it's taken out of everyone's hands, really.
Yeah.
And, we have people nationally who advise our bishop on what to do with us. But I was really encouraged by that because I was black, came from a white Celtic nation,
mm-hmm.
man. I had no formal qualifications, and usually you'd sit in a room, and I remember seeing a theological college up north, and they saw my education history, and they made it so difficult, the meeting, that I just left it, and I was offered a place and turned it down very quickly.
Right.
Whereas when I first went to Nick's Meaton's office, he saw my paperwork, and he said, right, we're going to do this. Excellent. And there was the only buts were the buts where it needed to be, because obviously it's bap, whatever. But the doors we could open, the doors I could journey with him on, he could journey with me on, was really important.
Mm.
I felt listened to. I felt that they wanted to help. It was never a hindrance. I was never hindered during the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I was advised perhaps to go to a BAME conference.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to go to, I had a BAME vocations advisor from a different diocese. So I went to Leeds for a couple of meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And those were meetings of intense discussions and hard discussions, but they happened. And it was all about me becoming a rounded person, not only in my vocation and my calling, but also as, as a human being, as a
Mm.
black.
Mm.
And that really was, for me, I really valued that. It helped also that I was in a very predominantly black and people of colour, church,
Congregation church, yeah.
In Manchester,
Yeah.
in South Manchester, where I had to deal with that day in and day out. And I learned so much. I have
Yeah, yeah.
love for the diocese, and
Yeah.
it's because I felt loved by the diocese,
I see.
by the church, by the bishop. I remember me and Bishop David and Bishop Mark Middleton have had conversations, and it was they wanted to all be in a diverse church, a church for a different world.
Yeah.
I was young. I am young.
Mm-hmm.
I'm black. I mean, tokenism could have been used. Favours could have been pulled left, right,
Yeah.
and centre. But actually, we didn't need to do that because they wanted Ben for Ben.
Yeah.
They didn't want me just to be a splash of colour in the pictures for the years to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I found that really, I really valued that. And it's only recently have I had to become proactive.
Mm.
I mean, it should have something I should have started years ago, but for different reasons I didn't. And I felt now that what our diocese is doing, what vocations are doing, what you're doing now as a BAME champion, I think that wouldn't have been heard of 20 years ago.
No, it wouldn't.
And actually, we need that.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to see a diverse church, because God didn't just sit with the white people.
Not
Jesus,
at all.
Jesus didn't just sit with white people. It was of many people, from the homeless to prostitutes to
exactly. And when we look at when we look at creation, it's always my example. When I look out my window and I see the incredible diversity of plant life and animal life living on a farm, I realize that God is a God who celebrates diversity. God is a God of diversity.
Yeah.
And that should be recreated in the life of the church. In how we worship, in how we organize ourselves as well. And not just, as you say, not just for the sake of tokenism, not just because we want to get bums on seats and we want to look good. It's to be authentic, to have a sense of integrity about who we are as Christians, and it's in order to celebrate the kingdom of God. We cannot celebrate God's kingdom. I don't believe we can celebrate God's kingdom reality without diversity, without a celebration of diversity. And it's a lie if someone says, well, we don't have any diversity because we're all white. Even within majority white churches, there is still diversity.
Very much so.
And it's just about the job is to seek that out.
Yeah, it's diversity in sexuality, diversity.
Exactly.
I mean, the class system is sort of gone, but there is diversity in class. I've got a friend of mine. He's a Chelsea doctor. He's also he's a non-stipendiary minister. And I go to Chelsea. It's predominantly a white church that he's at. But I mean, in that church, it's very rich. From the richest to the rich, to some of the poorest to the poor.
Wow.
And it's all. So there is a diverse range, but I don't buy that either. Actually,
no, not at all.
And I remember coming to Ridley and saying to the principal, "What's your BAME percentage? 2%."
Mm-hmm.
I think we're now up by 5%.
All right. Okay.
And I mean, it's very minimalistic, isn't it? But actually, it's a start.
Yeah, it's better. I'm sure it's better than where I was at. Vitally, but I mean, other than say Queens, I would guess. But there isn't. There are no other colleges that are offering black theology, for example. When I was in 2017, it was only Queens.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that it's only Queens that. I mean, I considered going there because I knew it was offering black theology and perhaps would have attracted more people of colour to study. But it's still encouraging, as you said, just the numbers have gone up at Ridley.
Yeah.
I was at Westcott, and I remember Ridley having more people of colour than we did at Westcott.
Yeah.
It tended to be a place that welcomed more of a kind of diverse spectrum of people, at least in terms of cultures and ethnicities.
Yeah. But I think our diocese is like that as well, and I think the vocations department is welcoming.
Yeah.
Diversity in different cultures.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that I'm aware Bishop David he very much stresses. Anytime we're having meetings, or thinking about who might be on certain panels or in certain task groups, he'll say, "Hold on a minute. Have we thought? How does this makeup look? Are we representing our city? Are we representing our church?" And he's always reminding the people who are sat around the table of the importance of fair and equal representation.
Yeah. Because our city is diverse.
Yeah. Not just tokenistic, but because it's important to be authentic, and to be able to hear different voices. I think that's really important. Just thinking. So you're kind of coming to the end of your experience of training, and you talked about kind of the encouraging aspect of the process of discernment leading to your training, and I would mirror that as well. I'd echo that I definitely felt David Sharples was my DDO, and he really encouraged me. What kind of advice would you offer to a person of colour who was thinking about going into leadership, either not just as a minister, but leading and taking a role within a church? What advice would you offer them? What would you offer them? Words of encouragement? Would you offer them words of caution?
St. Francis of Assisi, that's the right person I'm hoping, is said, "Be who God meant you to be, and you will set this world on fire." Take that as you are called. If you are called by God, you are made by God. You are the image of God. You are made in the image of God. As a person, from a BAME background, always have that as your mantra. Never sit in an awkward conversation and sort of allow people to look at you differently because of your colour. Institutionally, the church has been able to do that. No more. First and foremost. I think, secondly, be the change you want to see.
Gandhi's, yes, yeah.
Yeah, we can be that.
Yeah.
That change.
Yes.
It is a difficult journey on many levels, journeying to any form of ministry that we feel called to. Very hard.
True.
I think it's added with with the problems we're facing now because of racism.
Yeah.
But never let that deter you. Deter you from what you feel called to do. Always persevere. If you feel that's what God is calling on your life, and have conversations with people from other minorities, because they've been through it too. I mean, we met in January of this year for the first time, and I value you as my brother in Christ Jesus, as a friend and as a colleague. And I remember ringing you a couple of things after George Floyd's death, and I've really valued that. And you have given me hope and purpose. Actually, when we have these conversations, also we can learn.
Yeah.
We can find the hope. We can find the purpose together. We can journey together. We're not alone.
Yeah.
To anyone going from this, whether young or old, as a minority, play to Mike Thompson says here that the New Testament lecturer,
New Testament scholar, yeah.
He said, "You play to the audience of one. That's God." And I really believe
very true.
You play to the audience of one. It's very good, I think, in any context, whether it's in ministry, whether it's anywhere we are, we can compare ourselves.
Yeah. And
actually, we shouldn't do that. And so they're not alone on this journey. I'd encourage them even more so since I've been on it. The conversations need to be had, and be themselves, and allow God to sort of change you as you go through it, and with that help educate, learn, and change others. But it isn't our job to educate white people, and we shouldn't play that as part of our calling and a part of our vocation.
Yeah.
But it's our job that we can sort of help.
Yes.
And those would be my advice. But never let any don't let them get you down. I mean, I say that very politely.
Yeah.
we are a church for a different world. We're going into a new world, you know, in the middle of COVID and post-COVID. We have a lot to learn from many things. And unfortunately, the brutal killing of George Floyd was also in the heart and middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we have to learn from that too. And with the help, the love, the conversations, the uncomfortability of what's going on, we will make a difference. We will change. And any life can be changed. Changed lives can change lives. And things we learn, we can unlearn, as I think her name was Dr. Jane said in America. And I wouldn't let anyone who's going through this process to the fantastic form of ministry they are ordained. I don't want them to ever feel put off because of their colour of their skin, their cultural background, who they are. I mean, we're all intolerable to somebody. But I probably am. But I hope to God it is never because of my skin.
Yeah.
And if it is, things need to be done.
Thank you, Ben.
My pleasure.
Wiser words were never spoken.
I didn't about that, but
No, definitely you speak truth, and I appreciate that. I appreciate this conversation as well.
It's hard. I think these conversations are hard and it's tiring.
Yeah. You kind of feel like you're going over stuff that you've been over before. You're like, come on, But at the same time, you're right that having these conversations with like-minded individuals, it can help to encourage.
Yeah.
It really can, and remind me that I'm not alone. Because there have been times when thankfully, I have my family with me. You know, I am blessed in that regard. But there are times where I feel like this vicarage I'm living in is an island, and then there are sharks around. Just outside, lurking, ready to pounce. So I'm definitely blessed and encouraged by the conversations I'm having with you, with Karen, and with others in the team as well.
Yeah, we will make it, and I hope one day, I say this in the politest possible way, we won't have to sit through these simplistically basic human, the human right of love, the message of love. We will not have to explain why we should love and become equal because of our colour. And that we can actually do what God calls us to do. Love thy neighbour as ourselves. And I pray one day that we can, I don't know if we ever will be able to, Aaron, but I pray one day we can close the file on it.
Amen.
And pray with the good Lord himself that it can be consigned to the history books. And it be something we look back at, but it isn't part of our future.
Amen. Thanks, Ben.
My pleasure.